All right. So, part two. So someone's very upset. There's this very angry energy in the air right now. Someone's very upset. Not only some of you, you're getting your confidence back, you're getting your mojo back. It's a beautiful day. Your prayers are being answered. Yes. Yes. Someone's very upset about that. Whatever they're being, sending negative energy, doing whatever the hell in the background, the information carrier, it's just not working. Now people are seeing this person or these people or this group of people or this community in a really, really not a good way. Basically, those who've been fake, lying, constantly lying, omitting, silence, complicit, doing multiple genocides and not educating themselves and not speaking to their communities, not advocating for others, not, only caring about their own, bypassing and stuff like that. Well, they're being exposed. Yes, Father God is exposing them. For example, it was like, it's like, it's ironic, but also it's like it shows the hypocrisy of these people. Like I said in the part one, where they literally could have stopped this 6-7 months ago. They have the capability to stop Israel for what they were doing, the ethnic cleansing, the genocide for the past 7 months. Everybody's aware. Nobody now, there's no excuse like, oh, I didn't know, I didn't see anything. That's bullshit. Because even in the news, in the mainstream Western media, they have to be kind of forced, even through lies, forcing to talk about what's going on. And they still try to pay and put this narrative that is Israel Hamas. It's Hamas. So everybody is Hamas now. Everybody is anti-Semitic, right? I told you guys, these are the words that they were using in their rituals and those satanic rituals. This is part of the massacres. They use Palestinians as their human shields because that is what a Zionist ideology extreme is. They're fascist, racist, demonic people, and they do not need to exist. This ideology needs to be literally anybody who's a Zionist, they should be in jail. They shouldn't be out there. They're not right in their mind. They're sick. They're sick in their head. And no, when I'm saying that it's against Zionists, I'm not talking about Jewish people, because even Jewish people, real Jews, who are educating most of us, basically, and I have a video for you for that, okay? One sec.
What's Israel's reaction to the deaths of these aid workers?
Good morning. This is very another devastating day of the war. Look, I think that when we talk about Israel's reaction, we have to remember that this insane, terrible killing of innocent people, in this case, foreign workers, is not unique. If you would invite me every day that my country has killed innocent people during this war, I would be speaking with you every single morning in the last half year. There is huge and terrible tolerance and indifference towards killing of innocent people. And of course, what happened yesterday is terrible and devastating, and I completely understand why there is a lot of discourse about this specific incident, because we're talking about British citizens, foreign citizens, not Palestinians. There is a killing of innocent people every single day, and when I hear my country, the representatives trying to justify, saying it's unintentional and so forth, I believe them, it's not intentional, okay? But the killing of innocent is not unique here, and it's part of the way we fight in Gaza for years. It's not unique for this situation, and that's what I think we all have to understand.
And Ori, there were 3 separate vehicles, at least 2 of which were armoured. We now know there were 3 separate missiles. Israel knew that this was a humanitarian convoy. They knew the route of that, and yet those missiles struck. Now, Israel has issued a quite frankly, a rather vanilla response to this, saying they will learn from this and they promise it will not, or ensure it won't happen. Again, this is what happens time and time again when innocent people are caught up in these wars. And the IDF, it seems, and certainly from the people we've spoken to this morning, they're saying that Israel is out of control.
Yeah, look, it's not even the first time that aid workers and humanitarian aid workers have been killed in this war. And I also read and heard all these different explanations about the investigation that the military did. And they say they will learn from it. Honestly, I have to tell you, I've been doing this work for 7 years, and the occupation has been going on for 54 years. I'm tired of hearing Israel, my country, the country I'm currently in, I'm a citizen of, I served in its army, yeah? I'm tired of hearing it saying we will learn from our mistakes, we will learn from our mistakes. We never learn from the mistakes. And I will tell you why we never learn from them. Because the policies, the way we actually enact war against the Palestinians as part of the occupation, it's extremely tolerant to collateral damage. And in this case, collateral damage is innocent people being killed. And that's why when I hear, Netanyahu saying this happens in war and the military spokesperson says whatever they say, they mostly say it, and it's really hard for me to say this really, but they mostly say it to look good in the international community's eyes rather than actually learning from the mistakes, because the policies are designed like that. We have been breaking the silence. I've been collecting testimonies from soldiers who served in Gaza and in the occupied territories for over 20 years. We learn how these policies work, how innocent people are collateral damage, even in the cases that it's extremely, it's always unjustified in my eyes, but even in cases like this, So the problem is not investigating, it's not a specific mistake that was done here and there. The problem is that the policy allows to kill innocent people on a daily basis.
And Ori, you used to be a tank commander in the IDF. You can speak to the culture that there has been there for, over the past 10 years, but particularly over the past 6 months. You also spoke about collateral damage there. What about reports over the weekend in Israeli newspaper Haaretz, IDF soldiers admitting to the operation of kill zones within Gaza, whereby anybody, innocent civilian, Hamas member, child, entering that zone would have been shot? What do you make of those reports?
Again, as a former soldier, I'm not surprised from this report. I also, when I served in different places, we always drew like an imaginary line that was unannounced that would be called the red line. And anyone who crosses that line, we have to shoot to stop. Luckily for me, I never actually did that, but we always had that line. So as a former soldier, I'm not surprised from what I just read. We are right now in Breaking the Silence in the process of collecting testimonies from soldiers who returned from the war and want to speak out against the orders that they received. And I really hope that in the next few months, we will have more concrete testimonies, information from soldiers who just did those things that we can share more. But as a former soldier, this article was not a surprise to me and was devastating to read, of course, because again, when you design an imaginary red line that you don't announce and you decide that everyone who crosses that line is a legitimate target to kill, you again increase the number of innocent people. I want to remind all the viewers here, we're talking about over 32,000 Palestinians killed, over 12,000 children in the last 6 months. Yeah, this has to stop. I can't emphasize enough how much this has to stop. And also commenting on Minister Cameron and discussion so forth, much more action needs to be taken place than random conversations with our ministers.
Can I just jump in, Ori, if I may? Those are really shocking revelations that you've just told us. I mean, really shocking revelations. You also mentioned the command structure there in Netanyahu. There are protests breaking out in Israel against Netanyahu. Do you sense the mood of the Israeli public is changing?
I think that the protests against Netanyahu are extremely important. I completely support them. Netanyahu, is maneuvering this war according to his own political needs completely. Yeah, I have no doubt in saying that even. I think that the tides are turning about that. I want to also be realistic and say here that the tides are turning not because of, the killing of innocent Palestinians, unfortunately, but because of other political processes. And of course, so important, because the fact that our government is basically not doing anything to retrieve our hostages, of 134 hostages, that our government, instead of doing everything they can to fix their huge mistake that caused those hostages to be taken. Instead of retrieving them, they are doing like political calculations of what is best for them in order to survive, even if it means sacrificing the hostages and leaving them in Gaza.
Well, thank you so much, 𝂀🆃pt, from Breaking the Silence there. And
Okay, so the next video, it's also something that I've been talking about for months now, that they don't need to resist. They're billions. I talk about it in the podcast. I talk about it in the other thing. Like, they don't need to. And this is also a confirmation from Father God that this needs to be the energy right now, for real. Because what's going on in the world is their entertainment. And we're not fucking their puppets or their slave entertainment. We're not. Let me rephrase this. We are not colonizers' entertainment. They're fetish, they're sick, sadistic, twisted shit that they're getting a fill of because they're bored having everything they ever wanted and they just want more and they can't get enough, right? So now they are like, well, we can get away with murder and killing people and ethnic cleansing people and genocide. So, you know, and we own most of everything what everybody, you know, so comfortable with. So we're just going to continue doing it. The fuck you're not.
I don't think billionaires should exist. No one needs that much money. I think it's inhumane. Pick any city, walk around, you know, you see people starving, people without basic necessities. There's no excuse for that. And it's not because people are lazy or don't want to work. The billionaires that keep amassing more and more wealth so they can build rocket ships and do whatever the hell they want to do, that does nothing for humanity.
Your critics say that's class warfare.
Yeah, class warfare has been going on in this country for the last 40 years. The billionaire class has been taking everything and leaving the working class with nothing.
So you welcome it. You want the war.
It's always, whenever working class people ever step up and say, this is wrong, we want it to stop, all of a sudden, oh, it's class warfare, it's the end of the world.
Israel existing at this point, it proves its power by Palestinians' capacity to receive its violence. It proves its power, its value, its significance through violence. And so what a normal, empathetic human being who has studied the establishment of Israel, Nakba, all of the different eras of displacement, what people who have studied that will understand is that these hyper-sadistic and ritualistic forms of violence are necessary for Israel to see itself as valid. If Israel didn't go this far, it wouldn't be able to say, this is this serious to us. Do you get what I'm saying? It's almost like they have to demand that this illusion be real by enacting violence and making their propaganda real. And it's, oh my God, it's so fucked up. And it's the reason I feel such a connection between Black liberation and Palestinian liberation is because look at Black people's history in the US and white people lynching, displaying our bodies. Like this parasocial relationship with like dominant violence and who the other is, who the terrorist is, who the...
Every day I get a question, why do you support Palestine? And for me the question should not exist when it has such an obvious answer, like I have a heart and I have humanity. Imagine I live in a world where I have to sit down adults and explain them that butchering kids on a daily basis is wrong. That butchering and genociding men and women, innocent people, stealing land, colonization, genocide, it's wrong. Ethnic cleansing, it's wrong. And you have to ask me the question, why do I support Palestine when it only comes to humanity? When I have to spend my days finding people who speak the same language of my heart, so I don't have to spend my days translating my soul and find little oases of humanity in this world. So I don't think the problem is, why do I support Palestine? The problem is, why do you have to ask that question in the first place? Maybe the problem is there.
All right, so let's ground ourselves together here in this park, okay? A little bit of water, a little bit of earth, a little bit of chili beans, okay? Let's honor our ancestors, especially what I'm going to briefly talk here about. I'm going to add the videos, but we also need to make sure that we also not only call for justice for indigenous population in other lands, okay, for Palestine, Congo, and Sudan, but also the ones where we at, okay. This is something that definitely Father God was letting me know about Cole, the one that recently was found dead and his hair was cut off, okay. Definitely a hate crime, okay. But he kept saying that it was someone from this same organization that he was working on. So there was a racist, someone who has something against them in the same organization that he was working. So the movie or the corporation or whatever organization that he was working, it was a planned attack. He also said that to investigate further the people who was working with him, who was around him, because definitely this is something that they had against them, or this could be also not just, he said it was closer to him, because this is the exact same energy that happened to his sister, the exact same way. So this was a kind of like just weird, sadistic, again, some type of entertainment, but also it shows how this person's family is, I don't know, it's basically royalty, I find, and they were intimidated and against this person, because I don't think they were expecting Cole to recover after what they did to his sister and also become someone like known and stuff like that, so they couldn't have that. So yeah, but you know how these elites do when something goes against their original plans, their evil, sadistic, and vile plans, okay? So yeah, just let's keep that in mind, to remember that it's still going on. Okay, the same thing is going on, the genocide. It hasn't stopped. So they run and all that shit in Australia and all that blah blah blah. It's a distraction, because they know the pressure that now the population knows and cares about Palestine. Everybody knows now. If you want to be more educated, I would suggest check out the bookshop. Go into 𝑓𝑑osiept.com, go into bookshop. There is a section called Palestine Educate Yourself, free yourself, basically. I'm going to be adding more books. There's one that I just finished reading. I think it's Nakba or whatever. It's something about Nakba. I put it on the top of the books, but the ones that I finished reading is on the top of the list, and the second list is Palestinian books. Educate yourself. Start educating yourself, especially from Palestinian books, people who, because right now even that you have to discern from people who write about stuff, but it's all misinformation or it's all propaganda or it's all like, you know what I'm saying? Pray for discernment every single day, because we're gonna need it, especially when we're in the energy of working for liberation and eradicating white supremacy and racism and imperialistic and fascist regimes, right? We clearly see them. We see right through you, boo. Right through you.
There's a really fucked up situation that's happening with Cold Brings Plenty that the news isn't reporting on, and I'm only finding out through like other creators. And if you don't know the situation, please watch this. So this is Cold Brings Plenty. He's a native actor that's part of the Lakota tribe. He was a part of the television series 1923, which is a spinoff of Yellowstone, but he was recently just found unalived in a quote-unquote wooded area. That's what we're being told as of today's date, April 9th, 2024. Set aside the obvious that there's a long history of like indigenous people being unalived and then there's no justice. Set that aside for 2 seconds. What is really fucked up about this situation is that like every news outlet and organization or headline that I see frames it this way. It goes, Cole Brings Plenty, star of television series 1923, found unalived after accusations of domestic abuse. But like, why the fuck is that a part of your headline? Why is it the most vital part of the story? You know what is the most vital part of the story that they're leaving out, that they're not even covering, let alone it being a part of the headline, is that the same exact thing happened to his sister less than a year ago. Kyla Mercy Redbear was reported missing in July of 2023, and then her body was found in a wooded area in August. And that's not a part of your fucking headline? The police investigated and determined that it was self-inflicted and that There was nothing criminal going on, but all of her loved ones determined that no, someone unalived her. And now this happens with her brother. And probably the only reason why we're hearing about it is because he's an actor on a popular television show, which I'm grateful that we're hearing about it. But imagine all the other stories that we are not hearing about. I don't make a lot of content like this. But when you see news organizations kind of bearing the fucking lead, it starts to feel like it's your responsibility to share that information. So I'm sharing this information with you. Please share it.
Campaign wants people to stop paying taxes in the UK to protest government support for Israel.
The UK taxpayers have paid for Israel to kill babies, children, mothers, fathers, grandparents. There's no two ways around it. And it was British taxpayers' money that did that.
Activist Ashish Prashar is one of the organizers of No Tax for Genocide, a campaign that wants to hold the British government accountable.
The weapons we are building in Britain, the weapons we're selling, the military support we're providing makes us complicit. We are aiding and abetting in the massacres that are taking place on the Palestinian people.
Here's how it works. No Tax for Genocide isn't about skipping tax payments altogether. Instead of paying the government, campaign organizers help taxpayers put that earmarked money into a trust.
When you pledge to the No Tax for Genocide campaign, whether you're employed or self-employed, we will do the work. You sign up, and on the day of action, we will send you a form to either inform HMRC directly or your business that you do not want your taxes to fund a genocide.
UK taxpayers can outline the terms of the trust to say that it will pay out to the government, but only if the government stops sending aid to Israel. Organizers say they were inspired by cost of living protests in 2022 and the 1990 poll tax rebellion that fought unfair taxation put in place under Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher.
Tax resistance is a powerful tool. We have experts who pull this together with a lot of experience here. They've brought other organizations from across the spectrum who support Palestinian liberation, but also everything from climate change organizations and Jewish leaders in the UK who've come aboard this campaign and said that we're not spending another penny on funding the genocide of Palestinians.
The UK has long supported Israel's occupation. And since 2015, the government has approved roughly $606 million worth of military exports, like missiles and ammunition. Days after the Hamas attack on October 7th, the UK announced it would offer additional military support for Israel's quote-unquote self-defense.
Israel occupies the Palestinian territories, and under international law, they don't actually have the right to defend themselves from people they're occupying. In fact, we turn this on its head. Occupied people have the right to resist.
More than 31,000 Palestinians have been killed since Israel began indiscriminate bombing in October. For those outside of Gaza, Prashar says the campaign is a way that protesters can take action.
You only have to see the marches themselves to know how many people are mobilized and ready to do something. And that question has often been asked, beyond protest, what can I do? Where can I actually assert some power? Where can I actually make a difference? Where can I actually make a change? There's no more powerful thing than putting your money where your mouth is and withholding that from a government that is actively massacring people, all the way into Gaza.
You know, besties, I really hate the Disney Pocahontas movie, and my child is not allowed to watch it. Welcome back to another episode of Learn Like a Bestie, where we are going to be talking about the true story of Pocahontas, whose real name was Madawaska. But before we even get into her story, before you guys start commenting things like heart chain or water this flower, I have a comment that I want you guys to use, especially if you don't know what to comment. I want you to put in the comments, who is Coal Brings Plenty? Or what happened to Coal Brings Plenty? We can no longer do anything to help Madawaska, but we can do something to help the family of Coal Brings Plenty. He was a young, vibrant, beautiful soul who had his life taken from him last week. When you're hearing this story today and thinking, wow, what a terrible time in history, no, it's not over. It is still happening, which is why these lessons are so important. Now let's talk about the amazing soul known as Madawaska. And let's give credit where credit is due, because the details from this story come from Matapanai oral tradition. Always source your historical knowledge from the people most affected by the things that you're learning about. Now, most sources state that when Matawaca was born, her mother lost her life, and Matawaca was indeed the child of the Powhatan chief. She was intensely beloved. Her mother's name was Pocahontas, and it's said that her father nicknamed her Pocahontas out of love for her mother and the fact that she looked very much like her mother. She had lots of brothers and sisters, and she was raised by all of the adult members of her village. She had a very loving upbringing. When the English colonizers arrived, Matawaca was about 10 years old, and John Smith was like 27. They were never involved in any way, shape, or form. And this whole story about her saving his life did not happen. And in fact, he made that claim in his writing after everybody else involved had passed away and could no longer refute his lies. The ceremony where he claims that his life needed saving was actually a ceremony honoring him. It was a ceremony where the Powhatan were like honoring him as the leader of the colonizers and like gifting them better land and resources. And this moron was like, yeah, I almost died. But yeah, things were tense. And let's be so clear that the indigenous people tried to be welcoming. John Smith was very much feared because he had a bad habit of walking into villages, going up to the leader of whatever village he was in, holding this thing to their head and demanding food and resources and supplies. He was a jerk. Now, simultaneously at this time, the indigenous peoples did not have a problem with the R word. They didn't have a problem with that because they had very strict punishment for people who behaved in such a ridiculous fashion. And so in the summertime, when it was hot, they would frequently be wearing a lot less. And I think we all know, or can at least imagine, what kind of sick minds came over the ocean. And there was a massive problem of those people, the people who look like me, going after children, which was absolutely unheard of and unacceptable in the indigenous cultures. And the histories that I've been reading say that they were shocked that this even happened, let alone that it went unpunished. And in fact, it became a very common thing for the indigenous women to offer themselves up to these men to protect their children. And they took that and used it to spread the rumor and stereotype that these women were of loose morals. And that is the time that Matawaca was growing up in. Now, during this time, Matawaca came of age, and it's said that she did take on the name Pocahontas in honor of her mother. Now, when she was about 14, she married Kokowam, who was the younger brother of the chief of the Potawatomi. She went to live with him at their village, and by all accounts, this was a happy marriage, and she very quickly became pregnant and had a son who was known as Little Kokowam. And then when she was 15 or 16, the men who look like me decided that they were going to kidnap her and hold her because she was so beloved, guys. She was so beloved. And they were going to kidnap her and hold her as a way to force the tribes to do their bidding. A man named Captain Samuel Argall came to the village after he found out that she was there and demanded that the chief give her up or he would destroy the village. So that chief was left with an impossible choice. And he had hoped that she would only be gone temporarily, and he agreed. Argall gave the chief a copper pot and later claimed that he traded that pot for her. She was forced to give up her baby, to hand her baby over to the other women of the village. Kokowam was not there when she left, and she was unable to say goodbye to him. She was taken away, and what she didn't know was that when Kokowam returned to the village, the people who look like me removed him from this earth. She was held in Jamestown, and according to the people who look like me, she became despondent and depressed, and they ultimately allowed her sister and her sister's husband to visit her. She told them quite clearly that she was SA'd, repeatedly, and most likely by multiple assailants. And from this, she became pregnant, and she had another son who she named Thomas. Now, not long after this, the people who look like me tried to force her to become civilized, and they were constantly forcing her to wear their kind of clothing and behave in the way that they behave. It's reported that she would routinely rip the clothes off because they were so uncomfortable. She was eventually converted to Christianity and given the name Rebecca. Now, at this time, the colonies were not productive enough for England. And this is where we see John Rolfe enter the story, because he was a leader there and he was the one under pressure to make these colonies profitable. He saw a way to do that by marrying the indigenous woman that they had held captive. Next thing you know, Matoaka was married to John Rolfe. Now, it was Powhatan tradition to have a father give away their daughter at a wedding. However, her father was terrified to come to the wedding out of fear that the people who look like me would remove him from the earth or remove her from the earth. But it said that he sent her a string of pearls as a gift. And in one of the very few portraits that we have of her, she is wearing a string of pearls. Now, of course, the historians who look like me claim that the wedding between her and John Rolfe was a loving marriage and that they married for love. That laugh was not a funny haha laugh. I just want to tell y'all something. Because this stopped me in my tracks when I saw it. Her son, Thomas, that she had that was conceived through S.A., John Rolfe took him as his own son and heir, and his name was Thomas Rolfe. Now, I don't know if you know a lot about people who look like me in that time period, but they weren't accustomed to going around and just being like, yep, that's my son, when it wasn't. So what it sounds like to me is that this man likely essayed her and then forced her to marry him. Now, apparently at this time in England, there was some unrest in England concerning the indigenous peoples. Some historians say that people were concerned about the way they were being treated. I doubt that. But one way or another, they soon set sail for England to parade Matoaka around like, oh, look at our civilized Native American woman. So she was forced to leave her first child on another continent and travel with her captors and abusers to their country and then be paraded around like a zoo animal. She hated it. And history says that she repeatedly asked to go home to her child. I'm guessing she begged. Finally, in 1617, she wasn't even 21 years old yet. She was given leave to go home. Can you imagine the excitement? You haven't been able to see your baby. She was in good health before they got on the boat. Then she had dinner with Rolfe and Argall, the original Argall, who first kidnapped her. She had a terrible coughing fit during dinner and fell dead. And it's most likely that she was poisoned. Now, of course, her tribe asked to have her returned to her lands, to her people, and of course the English refused. To this day, her body remains in England. So when you are enjoying Colors of the Wind or whatever, just know that you are watching the sick, twisted, completely warped version of the story of a real woman who was essayed and abused and taken from her child and never got to go home. And she still hasn't gotten to go home. We've run out of time, so I'm going to do an additional video for Cole Brings Plenty. But in the meantime, please go look up his story. I love you, besties. Have a beautiful and blessed day.
I think the worst type of people to ever exist, besides the ones who brutally rape and torture and torment human beings, are the people in comment sections that say, this is a part of war. I think those are the worst humans to ever exist. Outside of the fact that people with any kind of common sense knows that the genocide in Congo is not a war. The genocide in Palestine is not a war. There are genocides that are happening. The genocide that's happening in Sudan is not a war. It's a genocide. It is an intentional act to ethnically cleanse a group of people. Outside of the fact that we know what's happening to the Palestinian people is a genocide, when wars happen, right, I think you have lost all sense of humanity if the first thing that comes to your mind is, this is a part of war. What in the fuck does shooting a child have anything to do with this is a part of war? Going at maybe, a table and having a conversation of your differences didn't sound like a plan? Torturing and tormenting and shooting human beings is how you're going to resolve this? I am anti-war 1,000,000,000%. 1,000,000,000%. It's just bonkers to me that when war does happen, someone can see like a limbless human being and be like, well, this is a part of war. Huh? What chapter is that where you lose your humanity and that's what you can say? And I bring this up because a lot of the comments that people who are brain dead and have brain rot, who see the genocide against the Palestinians as a war and not a genocide, the brain rot people will be like, outside of the brain rot Zionists, it'll be like the brain rot people who think that they hold like this like bountiful stance of like, well, war is bad, but unfortunately, this is a part of war. And it's like a headless child or a child with like multiple bullet holes in them. And they're like, stop the war, end the war. Unfortunately, this is a part of war. What? What brain rot? What? No. I'm going to tell you, and I don't care if this is an unpopular opinion, killing innocent human beings is not a part of war. You can't give me a good enough reason to start a war when it comes to the Western countries and why they start a war. Because anytime a war happens, it's always the Western world trying to torture and torment and steal land and steal minerals and oils from somebody else. But the minute resistance happens, the minute people fight back against the war, is where you guys, peace will solve it all, end it all, peace in the world, we are peace. When Black and brown and indigenous and POC people fight back, that's when peace comes out. When Western worlds, doesn't matter what religion you are, so don't bring religion into this bullshit. When the Western world goes, oh, it's a part of war, it happens. Y'all are brain rot. Like, you guys are the ones who put this is a part of war are as brain dead as Zionists. There's just nothing else to it.
Now we know the energy of trying to twist this, turn the table, or to make themselves look like the innocent and victim. We already know this energy. We have seen it for the past 6 months. We've seen it before. We've seen it in climate change as well. We've seen this, okay? Especially when, they know that they need to be held accountable and stuff like that. So the energy right now is blaming. I told you guys this in the past, right? I don't know if you guys have been following me for a while, or I talk about this in recent videos on TikTok or on the podcast, okay? And I keep repeating it because it's the truth. And this is something that God confirmed like a month or 2 months ago. I don't remember, but he confirmed this already. So it's funny that it's coming back again. It's not funny. It's more like ironic because it's already predicted. So that's what I told you guys. When you're connected to God, which is something that I'm getting there, someone's very upset. Like, you have that connection with the Most High and they don't. They're just evil. But if you're evil with a dark heart, obviously God is not going to get closer. God is love. It's all about love. And that's what we're here for. We share information and education to help people to get back into love, to let go of the hate and dark stone heart that they have, that they've been programmed and conditioned that it's okay to have. Apathy is a disease. Zionism is a disease. It's a sickness. Yeah. So, it's kind of like in our body how the white cells attack any disease and anything like that and eradicate them from your body so that you can go back to healthy and go back into your normal selves and do all the things that you're supposed to do. Yeah, that's what most of us God's children are. Those who are awakened, chosen. You don't have to be chosen. Some of you are protectors of the chosen. That's the whole point. You're supposed to speak up, not shut the fuck up. Oh, they're mad that ritual, the spell, whatever fucking curse that they're trying to do to people is not working. It did not work. They're so upset. They're not quiet. They're not believing us. Oh, why they care so much about Palestine? Why they care about the Congo and Sudan? Motherfucker, because your wealth and everything you had is stolen from those people that you're saying that we shouldn't be advocating. And you're using our money and our taxes to get that fucking fetish fulfilled. And you still think that we're just gonna let you continue doing it, right? You're sick. You guys are fucking motherfucking sick. And those who support this energy, you too. Yo, your guys gonna get it. There's a special place in hell for y'all.
This has come sooner than I thought it was going to, but we have now reached the point where a lot of the same ghouls and goblins who have been cheering on the genocide in Gaza, sharing positively horrible images and videos and defending them, are now starting to quietly delete them or saying that it's fake. You knew this was going to happen. It's atrocity and genocide denial. And now that Sora is out, there are people claiming that the videos that we're seeing and the atrocities that we are seeing happening in Gaza are somehow AI. These advances in AI and the fact that there has been zero guardrails put on it or zero checks or safety around it is going to be the end of every single one of us on this planet. AI is going to be like that thing that you see in movies where like everybody is cheering for something happening, but they don't realize that they're cheering their own destruction. That's what AI is. So while we're all like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, governments are using it already in the most terrifying ways imaginable. And now political propagandists are using it to say that things that we're seeing with our own eyes are actually aren't real, that it's a product of AI. And this is only the beginning. There's going to be a lot of shit that continues to happen, and the powers that be and the corporate media and the people that are really in charge in this country and on this globe are just going to turn around and say, don't believe your lying eyes. It's Sora.
Hi everyone, we are now in Khan Yunis. Today is the second day of 𝂀𝆃pt. But look what I found here. I found these made in USA. Israel using these to kill our people. So USA participated directly in the genocide.
טוב, מי שלא ידע, תראו מה הולך בנתב"ג, ככה כל יום.
Alright, it's getting cold when I head home, but I'll do another energy reading for now, because I have to do a couple things. But let's talk about some sort of good news. Not really. Gaza and Rafah, all eyes on over there, okay, because they're still being bombed, they're still dealing with starvation and famine, they're still being killed, okay. This is part of the energy, and also I'm going to try to post here, yeah, this is still happening.
What you're seeing here is a Palestinian community in the West Bank being terrorized today by Israeli settlers. These settlers reportedly lit several homes on fire and opened fire on Palestinians, injuring several and killing at least one. This is a really horrific event that unfortunately is not an uncommon occurrence in the West Bank as Zionist settlers continue to terrorize Palestinians in an effort to ethnically cleanse them from the land. It's a really brutal reminder that Palestinians even outside of Gaza are facing the brunt force of Zionist colonialism in occupied Palestine. As Palestinians in Gaza are facing a genocide at the hands of Israeli occupational forces, only miles away in the West Bank, Palestinians have been rounded up in the thousands, taken hostage, and thrown into Israeli prisons as Israeli occupational forces have led regular raids into refugee camps like that of Jenin. This is all being coupled with massive amounts of land theft, with the Zionist Project recently announcing the land theft of 10 square kilometers, the largest West Bank land seizure since 1993. That's only part of the story, though, as over the decades, Palestinians in the West Bank and across occupied Palestine have been living under a brutal apartheid system as Zionist settlers continue to try to clear them out in an effort to colonize every square inch of historic Palestine. And as Israeli settlers continue to pour into areas like the West Bank, Palestinian communities in those areas are finding themselves increasingly isolated and surrounded, with many of them being turned into functional Bantustans, with movement in and out being controlled by Israeli forces. Essentially, what we're seeing here is colonialism in action. We're seeing settlers actively attempt to terrorize and by extension displace indigenous populations who have called this land home for generations. It is one horror of many, and yet another reason why Zionist colonialism has to come to an end in occupied Palestine. But yeah, just something we're thinking about. As always, free Palestine, Assalamu alaikum, and have a great day.
This is how Israel erased the Arab Jewish identity.
White supremacy is deeply embedded into Zionism, even inside the Jewish world.
Israeli writer Alan Mizrahi is the son of a Palestinian Jewish father and Moroccan Jewish mother. He spoke to us about the hostility Jews from the Arab world faced after the creation of Israel, and the pressure they felt to abandon their culture and even the way they spoke.
The humiliation Arab Jews experienced in Zionism is something they never experienced in the Arab countries, in Muslim countries. They never experienced white supremacy in Morocco or Iraq or Yemen. They only experience it here.
45% of Jews in Israel originate from the mostly Arabic-speaking countries in North Africa and the Middle East. Today they're called Mizrahi. Many left those countries after a rise in hostility largely sparked by Zionism and Israel's creation in 1948. But in Israel they faced hostility too. Zionism's early leaders condemned them for being too Arab, calling them uneducated masses and savage.
They treated brown Jews and Jews from Muslim origins from Arab countries as inferior.
When they arrived in Israel, Mizrahi Jews were placed in transit camps, then slums in so-called development towns, largely to provide cheap labor to Ashkenazi settlements.
Arab Jews needed to unlearn Arabic and to unlearn their Arabic accents. I asked my mother, how come you didn't rebel against this? And my mother told me,
yeah. So, yeah, it's a little history. Study the Nakba. Study anything before 1948. Don't be complicit. Don't be ignorant. Don't be a racist. Okay? Don't believe all this bullshit. That's the whole point. This is why decolonization is important. This is why it threatens oppressors like massive that people study decolonization and then they educate themselves. Do you understand why? I hope for the past 6 months that I've been giving and sharing content from other people, my own energy, sharing the educational content that you guys need. And please continue liking the videos, continue sharing, continue subscribing, continue interacting with the content, any of the content, even in the community board, okay? Because my content is being heavily suppressed and censored because they don't want this information for you guys to know. Why? Not only it breaks generational curses that most of y'all already have because you're continue, you know, unaware, unconsciously or consciously, you know, doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, okay? But also it's enlightened for you and awakens you to not be asleep and complicit and not continue nurturing and enabling karmic financial debt from other people that is not even supposed to be yours. A lot of you're supposed to take care of your own karmic financial debt from your own generational family lineage, which could be connected to the oppressors that you're supposed to take care of on your own. But now you have, on top of not only that, but on top of new karmic financial debt that you're not supposed to even carry. Wake the fuck up, for real. The next video is from my tocaya, Angie. She's going to explain to you a little bit about white supremacy, but you do your own research. Again, go read some books on the bookshelf that I put some books there about white supremacy. I do have anti-racism books as well on the bookshelf that you can check out. Educate yourself. And even that, if you can afford those books, that's fine. I'm talking for the USA people because Bookshop, what it does is supports any library from, any bookstores in the USA. I wish it was in Canada, but they're not doing that. But it's not the point. The point is for you guys that if you can't afford those books, go to the library, write down the names, the name of the author, and go to the library and get it for free. Don't put excuses. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit your education. Education is not only in the institutions and organizations that this government designed to program and condition us. Wake the fuck up. We're supposed to be outside of the status quo a long time ago. Actually, most probably 76 years ago and even further than that. They've been working really hard, not only for you guys to demonize and dehumanize your spirituality, your real spirituality, your connection with God, which is why I'm telling you, someone's very upset about that. It's not working. It's not working that your connection with the Most High, it's not severed. It will never be. Your intuition is on point, but their intuition is blocked. They're protectionists. They don't have any protection. You do. It's like there's been like anybody that they have been trying to steal that from you, protection, finances, whatever energy to make themselves steal your legacy or goals or destiny. It's like it's been like fucking ripped from them and given back to you. A lot of it, you'll feel this. You'll feel your energy and everything coming back to you. It is broken. It is written. And it is done.
Welcome back to the series where we review white supremacy culture characteristics. Today we're going to go over one that's applicable to everyone, even myself, and that's fear. White supremacy culture's #1 strategy is to make us afraid. All of the characteristics listed here are driven by fear. We fear not being good enough, not being lovable. When we are afraid, whatever the reason, especially when we don't have the skills to hold that fear, we are easily manipulated by any false yet powerful sense of safety. The promised safety is false because it is always based on the abuse and misuse of power that shows up as everything from microaggressions to deadly violence directed at whoever or whatever we are told to be afraid of. Often it is the racialized other. Often it is ourselves. White supremacy uses fear to disconnect us in multiple ways, to disconnect us from each other across racial identities, disconnect us from each other within our racial groups, disconnect us from ourselves. This is literally, if you were to boil down everything to one problem, it is this: the division and disconnect between each other that was manufactured for a reason. All of these things that we fight over, the left, right divide, all of this is manufactured things to keep us divided so that we can remain in submission to the 1%. That it's not each other that we need to be fighting, but the powers that be. Once that finally happens, we will see real change. But we're too busy fighting each other. White supremacy and white supremacy culture and racism use fear to divide and conquer, always in the service of profit and power for a few at the expense of the many. If we want to defeat white supremacy, then we have to get skilled at meeting our fears so that we are not manipulated by those who delight in seeing us go after each other and ourselves, while they maintain power and control. The antidotes to fear include first and foremost naming it when it arises, whether in a group or in us individually. We must collectively and individually develop skills to meet our fear, sit with our fear, name our fear, and work to avoid letting fear drive our beliefs, actions, and decisions. This is a huge thing that is dividing all of us.
Now, the resistance axis is supporting Gaza, but that full-fledged intervention will come about if the Gazan resistance is weakened. But the reality is, it's not been weakened, and it's still standing strong. The occupation entity is unable to achieve a single strategic military objective on the ground. They're unable to locate the hostages. Even if they did, they're unable to take them out. They're unable to locate or reach the location of the Gazan resistance to assassinate its leaders within Gaza. It's only managed to assassinate leaders like Aruri outside of Gaza. So they get brave with the family of Ismail Haniya, his children. And that ultimately has no crucial effect or bearing on the situation on the ground. The infrastructure of the resistance is still very much intact. As we mentioned previously, the occupation entity is unable to reoccupy Gaza. All of its ground invasions have failed, and most recently it's been forced to withdraw from Khan Yunis after sustaining immense losses. So the occupation entity as a whole is lost. Internally it's fractured. The Haredi Jews that don't want to be conscripted, that's going on. You have the entity that is complaining about not having enough soldiers that want to fight. Their morale is very low. Even pre-October the 7th, you had 300k reserve force fighters who were actually, striking, in protest over the occupation entity's governmental laws. The people on the streets ultimately want to see an end to this war because they deem it as a failure. They want to see the release of the hostages.
Israel has lost this war. And why do I have to be the one telling you? Because you watch Western media and you think someone will show up and announce it. That's not going to happen. Yes, they did withdraw their troops, and they're also regrouping because of Iran. And yes, I know they're still attacking Rafah, but they have lost most of their partnership. They're going to go through now an arms embargo, and the United States can only provide so much temporarily. There's only so many times the American president will bypass Congress. There's only so many times Congress will get away with sneaking arms into different bills to trick the American people. This is all coming to an end, and they're trying to do as much damage as possible because you didn't see a picture of one aged soldier that they came to have captured or unalive. They didn't retrieve their own hostages, but they do want to claim full victory for the sake of their propaganda. So they will be doing damage, but they have lost so badly. Will they ever have allies again? Will they ever have arms deals again? How are they going to survive? 80% of the settlers going back to where they came from are saying they will not come back to Israel. They're done. There are more people leaving the settlements than coming in. So the idea that you could recruit white people or people from anywhere all over the world to try and overpopulate Palestine and take over and outnumber Palestinians, that hasn't worked either. Israel has lost. And when the Yazidis in Germany lost, on their way out, they did damage too. They unalived a lot more of the J because the soldiers were upset, they were angry, they were defeated. Bibi still has some weapons. His young soldiers are angry. They're frustrated. They don't like losing. And yes, their government is telling them that they're winning, but they know. So yes, it's happening. I'm not denying it. The horrors that the people in Gaza are going through are brutal, and they haven't stopped. The Palestinians won because the world sees them now. We see you, Palestine, and we're not giving up on you.
And as always, all glory be to God. Thank you for all those people who have delivered the information, were obedient to the Most High first, and are there. They care, they have a heart, they have their humanity. We are grateful for their bravery and their courage, and we are grateful for you for getting all the way to this point. Make sure that you are listening to the podcast 83 and 83, 84, 85. There's a Fearless series, okay? For a lot of y'all, there's a lot of good, juicy, spiritual food for you to... You could get some downloads as well. Everybody's going to receive the messages differently, just like when you read anything, any book, and you listen to anything, you get the message differently. Make sure that you have an open heart. And if it's too high vibration for you, it's okay. Go educate yourself, give it a pause, and come back into it, okay? It's a bellow for you anytime, all right? Make sure you guys are continue sharing and helping the Palestinian continue. All eyes on Rafah, all eyes on Gaza, all eyes on the Palestinian, the Congo, the Sudan, those who are in that energy as well. Continue educating yourself. I don't think we should, there's no peace. Oh my God, that's so cute. Look at this. Oh my God, cutie patooties, my duckies. Yes, I'm back. That's how you know summer's coming. Continue advocating for those who need us, or speaking out for them, okay? Because they're not voices, they're speaking up. Okay, we just need to take their energy and amplify it. Keep pushing, keep amplifying. Okay, and honestly, I will really recommend a lot of y'all. Like, I know that it's comfortable to kind of distract yourself with other people, like, you know, not really talking about this. Like, a lot of you, we have the privilege to do that. But during this time, I really, I don't know. I'm just letting you know that the Most High is a just God, and He sees everything. He knows that what is it that you spend your time and energy on, and He will judge everyone accordingly. Okay? I just hope, for all your sake, that He's not so harsh on you, you know? But if He feels that it is so, then it is His will, and I am nobody to... You know, I just have to be obedient and continue doing what I need to do. Okay? I love you guys. I hope this was helpful. Continue praying also. Don't stop praying for discernment. Don't stop praying for those who need it. And stop, don't buy into the propaganda and misinformation. Okay? Because it's all created for that same reason. They spend millions. And most of us who are in the truth, energy, clarity, and justice, our payment is not in the physical and the material. We basically are volunteers doing this, okay? But our reward is that someone out there gets heard, their energy is validated, their truth is spoken, that they're able to evacuate, continue sharing and looking into Operation Olive Branch, okay, guys? That someone gets to be safe, that the blockade needs to be removed, that the people are able to receive aid and food and medical assistance, that this stop, that this genocide stop, that the ceasefire, the end of occupation, the end of apartheid, that they get their land back. That's the energy. And it's gonna happen. Glory be to God. In the name of Jesus. Amen. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.